who knows who this legend is?
My name is Paul
Oh, there we
Anthony
go.
Romero, and I'm from Los Angeles, and
There we
I'm
go.
a composer, and I'm very happy to work on projects like Heroes of Might and Magic.
I think this guy did the music for the mods as well, the Horn of the Abyss. I think they contributed with music for that as well, the community mod.
I was very lucky as a child. I had a child, sort of a prodigy career. People found that I could compose at a very young age, like 8, 9, and I was getting opportunities to play in different parts of the world, in Japan, New York, Washington, D.C. So I thought, everybody thinks I'm a composer at a very young age. And then when I was 15 years old, I went to a very serious music school, and they said, no more concerts, no more being like a trained monkey, is what they said. You need to stay here at the school and study, study, study. Forget concerts, forget the outside world, basically. So I did that.
The
I
fuck?
my studies, and I developed a good
Okay.
education. But now I'm in my 20s, and there's no work. Like, there was zero. So I started cooking, I started doing construction work, anything just to make money, but I couldn't find any work in music. So 10 years went by, and I was probably in my late 20s, and I just was at a party in Los Angeles, and I met this producer, Rob King, and he goes, oh, so tell me.
Seems like a strange approach. I think it's like some schools are weird about that. It's not no performing because, well, I went to music school and conservatory, and we did have performances. Like, it was part of the experience. We would have the semester, right? And at the end of the semester, the school would have performances of all levels. Yeah, we would do recitals, exactly. And not just recitals, we would actually, for instance, we had a chamber music groups formed out of that. Nothing really like independently, so people would perform in different places. The orchestra as well had like performances that had nothing to do with curriculum. Once you are involved, with groups of people, it's all about getting that performance experience, because you can practice all you want, but if you not you can practice all you want, but if you don't go in front of people, if at the end of the day you don't go out there and make music for people, what the fuck is the point? I think something weird was going on here, where they saw that it was already successful, but they were like, oh, success will go to your head, you'll never learn, you need to learn the proper way. You have to forget about what you're doing. You're like monkey dance right now, you need to be a serious musician. It's still weird though. Like, why would the school be involved in that? And then, mind you, maybe if he never stopped, maybe if he kept, learning at school and then performing, maybe he would have more opportunities. Because at the end of the day, what they did was cut him from the opportunity. They cut him off from the opportunities, right? Because then you're kind of forgotten at the end of the day, right? If you don't maintain your circles, people forget about you. If you're there and if you're reliable, people will count on you and they will call you for other projects. Um, this has been my experience, at least. But if you stop being available, people will move on. Opportunities will be gone. Nobody waits. Especially music, it's still undervalued today. I don't know. The price of everything went up, and the what you get for a gig is still shit.
Concerts, and he
No.
goes, oh, we need a musician for our new project. We're a small company called New World Computing, and we have a new game called Heroes of Might and Magic. And there's castles in it, and then there's wizards, and then there's knights, and there's
Hell yeah.
dragons and spells.
Best
He
game.
goes, but we only have rock and roll musicians who are doing the music for it, and it doesn't seem right. So he goes, do you think you can do music that sounds like it's from a long time ago? It's like, well, how long ago? Like, well, long ago where there's castles. So I said, sure, I'll come in. So I went to the little studio that he had, and I started playing classical music, like Bach, Scarlatti,
Hell
Beethoven,
yeah.
Rachmaninoff. And he goes, Well, I think the Baroque era is going to be the right era for this soundtrack. So I go, okay, I can compose music that sounds like it's written like 400 years ago. He goes, great. He goes, we're going to pay you $400. You start tomorrow and you have 1 week to do all the music.
Holy
So I
shit.
was like, okay.
What? Wait, what? Wait a minute. It's a lot of money back then, by the way. That's a lot of money. So it's still. That's a lot of music. It's a lot of music.
So that was how. It was at a party, and I just happened to randomly
Oh, maybe not the first one, because this was Heroes of Might and Magic 1, right? 3, it's the iteration.
meet this audio producer. One day, magically, meeting this producer, he invited me back into the world of music. But I never even played a video game before, so it wasn't a career path that I was searching for, because I didn't even know. If I knew that computer games would have been a good fit for me, I would have already pursued it when I was 20.
Yeah, but there was no such thing. Like this was not an avenue that people knew that it even was possible, right?
But now I was almost 30, so it kind of came to me by an accident at a party.
I think, wasn't it Expedition 33? That was just a guy from Reddit that they were like, or a forum or something. They were like, "Can you make music for this?" And they send them something. They go like, "Come on over."
The 20th century,
You got it.
not maybe real contemporary, but definitely Prokofiev and Ravel and Stravinsky in the 20th century. Aram Khachaturian, an Armenian Soviet composer. Babajanian, another Armenian jazz composer. I love those sounds because they use the full symphonic orchestra as we know it today. However, because of their culture, they can create sounds of the past within this modern orchestra. So I love using that. But then on the other
You see a lot of folk influence in those composers, right?
side, I really love music from 400 years ago. I love the music of Lully and Bach and early Scarlatti and Handel and Vivaldi and all the Baroque composers, from the 17th and 18th century who had very limited orchestrations, and I like to compose within that framework as well. It's almost like if you're a jeweler and you're doing jewelry in the 17th century, you have no electricity, you have no lasers to cut your diamonds, so you actually really have to chisel your diamonds and your stones or your cabochons and do your gold work by hand. And but then you also
it's like the idea of the grand orchestras only came about with the Romantic period, right? The idea of the massive orchestra, the full sound, the romanticism of like Beethoven, for instance. Even Beethoven was still very much not the full extent of that idea. You can see that in Russian composers with like ultra romantic Russian composers. You can see that use of the orchestra and the instrumentation is very, everything is very grand, whereas in the Baroque there was more chamber music, smaller groups,
also get to make jewelry
but Bach is still the goat.
using
Don't get me wrong.
21st century
Bach
technology as well.
is the goat.
So it's like it's a beautiful combination of being able to do ancient kind of music and modern music. So unfortunately, even though I've been writing music,
We got Weeble Weebles. Hope everyone is all right.
so I don't really know how they intermesh. I hope they work. But as far as my favorite tunes are simply based on what I feel the quality of the music is, just for me. So when I'm working on a piece of music, I don't judge the music on how it fits into the game. I'm judging it just on a piece of music. So if I take this piece of music, how do my colleagues from classical music school, how would they think it was just as a piece of music? So that's, to me, that's very important, that it's actually very good. My favorite pieces of music are from Heroes 1 is the Barbarian theme, because it's in the style of like Vivaldi or Bach. but it was the very first piece of music I ever did for a soundtrack for a computer game. So, and that's one of my favorite pieces to play today because it feels as if like Bach or Vivaldi wrote it. It doesn't even feel like I wrote it. It feels like somebody else wrote it. So I love to play it just as a classical piece of music. On the other hand, I love the music from Heroes 5, Heroes of Might and Magic 5.
Heroes 5 has very good music, and even though I love 3 is my favorite, Heroes of Might and Magic 3. If you haven't played it, go to GOG and get yourself a copy. It's like it's always on sale. Most of the time it's on sale. It's like $1-2 max. And if you all get a copy, we're gonna play community games, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 over here. For anyone that doesn't understand what that game is about, it looks scuffed as hell. It's a lot of fun. Even and with the community, there's now GOG has a thing for mods, by the way, where you can just one-click install. If you have the base game, you can one-click install a mod. So there's no excuse for people like, oh, this community mod is like from a Russian forum. Is this safe? Or no, you just click a button and you can install Horn of the Abyss, which is like additional content, some quality of life, and additional music from Romero.
From Heroes 1 because now it's epic and more like early 20th century music of
Prokofiev, yeah.
Rachmaninoff and Prokofiev and
The Russian composers.
Even like Shumanovsky and some other composers that are hundreds of years apart from the original style of the first Heroes of Might. So that nobody made me stuck in one genre, and they can't. Okay, you got to do that same music for 30 years because I don't think I could have done it. So it's allowed me to grow even as a musician. Because I was in my 20s when I started with the first Heroes, and now like I'm almost 60 doing a new version of Heroes. So it's nice just for me as a person to see how my own music has progressed. Sometimes it's financially based. If my audio producer has created a contract where we're created by minute, I don't tend to like that. That was sort of maybe in the middle of our of the Heroes franchises, maybe Heroes 4 and 5, were music by the minute. I prefer like
that just music by the minute. Oh my god, that's a bit. It's not just restrictive. It's kind of weird, right?
Let me just do a piece of music, and if it works for this section, I'll try to make it between 2 to 3 minutes or 3 to 4 minutes, because as a composer, you need the
minute of his work. No, minute of music. Per minute of music. It's such a weird thing, right?
Space. But some producers really want it to be exactly 3 minutes, which means if the music really finished at 2 minutes and 49 seconds and there's a note at the end, like an oboe, that note has to till 3 minutes, and we cut it off right there. That's exactly what they want. So that's a little more difficult. That's sort of like selling fabric or your shirt or your dress by how much fabric they use.
Yeah.
I prefer a little more creativity because music needs to have a little space between. Sometimes the music needs to be shorter or longer, and it's like having a child. You have a child, you don't know how tall that person's going to be. They might need clothes that are bigger when they turn 7.
Yeah, of course that the amount of fabric is a consideration, but it's like your pants have to have exactly, this amount of fabric. It can't be more, it can't be less, and we're gonna pay for this exact amount. That's still weird, right? Obviously, the amount of fabric and the costs involved. Yeah, they wouldn't ask for a refund for the scraps not used, exactly.
Or they might need clothes smaller when they're 7. You have to go by the actual melody, and these melodies are very organic, and they kind of dictate.
Like, how do you create? It's what he's saying. How do you? This is hard to do because you would have to have techniques to kind of taper the music off. Like if you know that the music has to have 3 minutes, you kind of have to structure it. Not all melodies will fit, because then you have sections that have to be shorter, or like you can't make it. It's so weird to work by the minute. It can be done. I'm sure you developed a lot of processes to deal with this kind of stuff.
It's a different process. So sometimes it is by the time. Sometimes it is by we need it by next week. And sometimes you have 3 months to write this piece of music, and if I have that much time, then I can go crazy with choirs, languages, soloists. Uh, it's all of it. Every game is a different creative process. Just depends on who you're working with. Say, I was looking at it over there. Never Winter Nights 2, The
Oh, right.
Storm is Here. It's the musical language and what they needed. They were only hiring me for the main theme. Then I recorded the music at our studio, boards and computers, and I thought it sounded really great. Then the company said, well, we want the London Symphony to perform it. We want to use their recording. So then the process of taking this recording and now reorchestrating it for live musicians within 1 week was a very difficult process. And then the orchestra recorded it in London, but they only did 2 rehearsals. So when you only have 2 rehearsals, it
Oh
doesn't
my God.
necessarily have the expression. It doesn't come. It's just like, okay, we're gonna play this twice,
Two
and hopefully it's gonna
rehearsals
sound good.
two rehearsals is like just enough to get the right things in, but you can't work out dynamics properly, or like to get some sort of the intent of the composer into the piece. Even though these are professional musicians, from personal experience, 2 rehearsals is like just reading. It's just you're reading the piece, you know?
I had a difficult time when the recording came out because I thought my recording in the studio was actually more beautiful than the London Symphony. But marketing, they wanted to
All
use
right.
the London Symphony recording. So
Okay.
that was difficult just in artistic ways. So, but I'm very happy when I hear that music, when I hear the actual symphonic recording and I hear my studio recording. I like both versions, and I'm proud of both. But it was difficult to do that, to do a 3-minute piece of music.
Yeah, because 2 rehearsals is nothing, right? 2 rehearsals is nothing. 2 rehearsals, you've seen the piece for the first time. Yes, you can practice this, no, whatnot. But it reminds me one time I was in this. There was this conductor that called me up and said, I'm doing this thing with kids in Lisbon, and this summer camp kind of thing, and I need musicians to come with me. Some musicians I trust to come with me and work with the kids. You would just guide the kids, give them a couple of tips, just being like a role model in a sense. Um, I was doing it for the saxophone. It was not a symphonic orchestra. They had a symphonic one and they had like a philharmonic orchestra, and I was working with the saxophone kids. And I remember we had this thing with they when everyone was coming together, everyone had practiced a lot. Everyone practiced a lot. They worked their asses off. Everything was rehearsed. Let's now play it. We go through the whole piece, and he stops. He takes his thing, puts it on the stand in front of him, and looks the kids in the eyes and says, "Right. So you guys just played this piece perfectly. No errors, everything was just as it's written. Now, please, let's make music instead." And the point is, you're not meant to read everything as is and be perfect. There's a story with the music, and like 2 rehearsals is nothing to convey that emotion that he wanted to convey. So I guess that's why he prefers his version, even though it's the London Symphonic Orchestra.
Was
Also, the violins were crying a lot after this because they were not used to this sort of criticism.
It's very interesting on the theme for the Cove. At the time, I was working on a song with the drummer from Nine Inch Nails, Chris Vrenna. Chris
Yeah, but
Vrenna
the cove, wait, the
added,
cove? Did you like how the modding team of the Horn of the Abyss approached music continuity? I didn't read this, sorry. Yeah, so he did the music for the mod as well. The Cove is not part of the original factions, right? It's from the mod.
It's very interesting on the theme for the Cove. At the time, I was working on a song with the drummer from Nine Inch Nails, Chris Vrenna. Chris Vrenna asked me if I could help orchestrate a pop song called "Stupid Girl" for a band called Cold. There was a band called Cold. They had
The fuck?
this song called "Stupid Girl," and they
Okay.
wanted to make the song longer without drums and just with classical orchestrations. So I did the classical orchestrations. Picklon heard the music that for the Stupid Girl orchestrations, and then so he liked that, so he turned it into the Cove. So if you hear like the Cove, dun 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 dee dun 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 dee dun, and then if you go find a recording of Cold singing "Stupid Girl,"
We gotta. Right? Wait, I know this song. Just a slow down version, right? That's it. That's cool. That's a cool little detail. I don't know. I guess I listened to Cold back then. I didn't
with
know.
the classical, it's called the long play. You're going to hear dun 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 dee, dun 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 dun, "Stupid Girl." In hindsight, I love it because he used it like kind of like a tribute, you know, and
That's
he
cool.
liked it. I mean, he
That's a
really
cool
did
little
like it, and he
detail.
actually was able to turn that into a song. And for me, I just used it as a motif,
Yeah,
but
a
he
little
really
motif.
took it to a whole new level. So when I played like the Cove with you last night, I really remember him, and it's very beautiful because I thought, wow, I thought one day he's going to be doing what I'm doing because that's how he was super talented. And then to also remember the melody with Cold, because that was a very good experience to work
I
with.
cannot
Chris was
unhear it
wonderful
now.
because then he gave me a real insight into his work with Nine Inch Nails, and I understood how their creative process was and how even rock and roll bands, how the culture that I came out of with classical music was just working always with live classical musicians. So music school, I always played like Brahms, I played Beethoven with all my student colleagues.
Yeah, but you you don't have an orchestra right there ready to go, right? Just like I don't have an electric piano, I have, you know, I have a virtual instrument, and there have been a lot of fantastic virtual instruments based on recordings of and samples of live orchestras, by the way. But if it wasn't for that, it's not like you can just go fetch an orchestra.
And then to start doing soundtracks using artificial sounds. I'd never done it before. Like our first Heroes 1, 2, 3, primarily are digital and synthetic sounds, where basically anything you hear in the orchestra, it's actually me playing.
Yeah,
And then as we had more budgets, we were able
that's how I do everything as well.
to start using real musicians.
No,
So technology gives us the ability to have more natural sounding instruments with the libraries. And actually, sometimes when you use a library, it sounds more natural than if you're actually using real natural musicians.
that's true. That's actually true, and it depends on instrument from instrument to instrument. Like for instance, this thing. Good luck trying to sound natural with a synthetic saxophone or a sampled one. Good luck. With a violin, I feel like violin, like strings in general, if it's a string ensemble, you can get more out of it. You can add the dynamics. You can have like a little thing where you'll do the dynamics by hand. You can, not just the volume, not just like the increasing and decreasing of volume, but like all sorts of bob and weaves and all sorts of little details. Like, I don't know, if you have a classical guitar, you the sounds of the strings and the taps on the guitar, you can add all of that. But certain instruments are super hard to replicate, saxophone being one of them. I never heard, not a single time, I never heard a single synthetic saxophone that sounded good. I suppose there's not a lot of people doing virtual instruments with saxophone as well. There's a couple of things you can do, like if it's a brass ensemble and there's like trombones, trumpets, and saxophones, it's just used for some quick riffs, you can kind of get away with it, but it's mostly just pre-recorded samples of something very specific. If you want to actually pretend you're playing an instrument, certain instruments are harder than others.
So there's conflict. Obviously, if I'm using
Choirs used to be so samples of choirs used to be absolute garbage. Nowadays, you have amazing virtual instruments for choirs to do this, to do, you know,
synthetic
people singing.
or sampled sounds, and then I have friends who are live musicians. They go, why aren't you using us? And the only reason why I would say is because it takes more time.
Yeah, it takes more time and
to
money as well.
Have the live musicians perform than it does just to have me do in the studio. So there's a conflict, and it kind of depends on the budgets and time frames and how much companies are willing to let you use live musicians. And so, you know, I love to use live musicians. If I can't use live musicians, then my ability for technology has to go higher so that it really sounds like live.
Yeah, because you can play a virtual instrument, but you can play a real. It's hard to do because if you had to have the dynamics on top of it, you really have to get into the inner workings of that virtual instrument to add all the nuances. You have to know those instruments, even though you might not play violin. You need to know how a violin would work to get, you know, some realistic sounding violins out of a virtual instrument and choirs and whatnot. And so I think there's times and places to use live musicians, but some other times it's not practical. And it's not like it loses anything because you're still performing it, but you have to do more work.
Musicians. But in the genre that I compose, I try to keep it really in a classical symphonic realm, and not too much outside of that in terms of sound effect or sound design. I'm still trying to keep the core of what I grew up with and what my natural training is. So I would never do a real weird synthetic score because I really wouldn't know how. So that's why I love Hans Zimmer, because like I can go from classical to Gladiator to like heavy metal and rock or sort of environmental sounds. I'm not able to do that. I'm kind of like John Williams, where I stay within my core of orchestrations, and then that's where.
That's a good comparison, actually, because if you think of Hans Zimmer and the kinds of movies where his music has been placed and the kinds of soundscapes that Hans Zimmer is able to produce. Think Gladiator, think Inception. I think it was Hans Zimmer as well that did Inception, right? This sort of soundscape. And then you think John Williams is just big orchestra, Star Wars, you know, not just Star Wars, but it has that that same symphonic register. Whereas as a good comparison.
Most of my music comes from.
Part 1? There's a part 2 coming? Hello? Did you like the video? If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, if you have the bell, press the bell. Otherwise, you know, you don't get the juicy stuff next time. Is this how you do it? What do you mean no? Oh, also, love your face. Bye. Bye. Click the things.